Welcome to another Mr. Paul video. Today we're discussing analyzing graphs 6.4. To analyze graphs, sometimes it's better to take away the numbers, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be analyzing what's happening to this graph with no numbers. We're going to see if we can understand the situation to where the distance from home is increasing and decreasing relative to the time. Our goal for today is to be able to understand, to be able to paint a picture just by looking at time compared to distance from home on Mr. Paul's any given day. We're going to try and label the different sections of what's going on in these different segments. So let's imagine Mr. Paul's day. He wakes up, he brushes his teeth, he has some breakfast, watches a little bit of news. There's this time in the beginning of his day where he stays at home, meaning his distance from home does not increase, meaning goes up, but the time does. And we can call this the morning routine. Almost everyone has one of these, right? The distance away from your home isn't increasing, but the time does. So it makes sense that this stays flat and it doesn't go up. Well, then I walk to school and then I spend some time here. This isn't very long because we know that I don't leave my house and have to travel very far. I live across from Rudder Park. So the distance I travel from home is very short. So we can say this is the time spent at school. Okay, so after I spend some time at school, I'll walk home, I'll spend a little bit of time there, and then I'll usually go to the store. So I'll go to the store. And you'll notice that this distance here is larger than this distance here. And the main reason for that is because the distance to the store is further than the distance to the school relative to my home. So if we're measuring the distance from home, I travel a short distance to go from my home to school, and a larger distance to go from my home to the store. After the store, I go home and I make dinner and I get my kids in bed, but I do things that are required to me to stay in home. So maybe we can call this like dinner. All right, kid time, right? I got 4 kids. I got to spend some time with them. But this is how I can label each individual segment of my day. So the goal for today is to be able to look at a given situation and be able to map out what happened, to understand the situation, to be able to analyze a graph. Well, let's take another example, something that's more relatable. How many of you have Instagram? Okay. So let's imagine that we have a second example. And we're going to say that these are new IG posts. And we're going to say that this is time. Now, I know we're going through some things with the COVID, but let's imagine back when we were in school, because that graph is going to be far more interesting. The COVID one would look something all over the place, and it's really hard to understand. So let's imagine that we're not in COVID, we're back in school, and that when we wake up, we're going to pretend that we're all caught up, meaning that green check mark is already going to be there. There's nothing new to see right when you wake up. So the first thing that people do is they check their phones. And then they post stuff, right? They post stuff for a while. And so there should be an increase in activity on Instagram. Let me make that a little bit bigger. There should be an increase on the activity wire from Instagram. Okay, then people go to school, and we'll all pretend like you're law-abiding students, and that you don't be on your phone when school starts. So school's going to continue, and then all of a sudden, there's a little break, and there's an increase in activity. Now, usually you wake up with like 1 or 2 hours before school. So what happens after? Well, actually, it's a little bit longer than that. So maybe an hour before school, 2 hours. So what happens about 2 hours after we enter school? That's right. It's our break. right? We have a break. You guys remember breaks, right? In between second and third period? Okay, during break time, do you always keep your phone in your pocket? Let's be real. Okay, let's be real. So maybe some time passes, break's over, and then all of a sudden, there's another spike again. Right? Maybe we'll call that lunch. You're not supposed to have your phones out, but you do. You're not supposed to have your phones out, but you do. So lunch happens, finish off the day, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, what's this? What's this big, huge increase? School's out. School's out. And there's usually a lot more activity, meaning time has passed, but it's more activity than during lunch, it's more activity than during break, it's more activity during, we'll call this breakfast. It's the most. Right when you get out of school, everyone's posting about everything. But then it dies down a bit as people start to do their homework. And it dies down a little bit, but then it goes right back up before going back down. Everyone likes posting about food. Everyone likes posting about food. So maybe we'll call this dinner. Dinner. But then it goes down to the bottom, right? Then it goes down to the bottom. And the reason for this is because you're not allowed to take your phones into the shower, right? So people take showers usually around this time. So maybe call this shower time. After you get done with the shower, you'll spend some time on your phone before going to bed. Okay? We can map out any instance like this, and we can put a label on just about everything. The more important aspect of this is, can we understand a context? Now, maybe your Instagram feed doesn't work like this because your day's not exactly like this. Maybe you don't have breakfast in the morning. Maybe you wake up right before going to school and there's no activity for you. But we're going to take generic cases. Okay? We're going to take generic cases. So we're going to do one last example. So this was example number 1. Example number 1. Here's example number 2. And we'll do one more example and we'll ask some questions about it. So let's just say example number 3. Let's just say that this is an oven. This is an oven. And my graph's going to look something like this. And I'll say that this is time. And that this is temperature. Temperature. We'll say that this is temperature. My first question to you is this. Just looking at this line, it's not as crazy as those other two. It's pretty simple. But my question to you is this. Why doesn't this one start at 0 when this one did and this one did? Why would an oven not start at 0 temperature? Done thinking about it? When you open the oven, do you realize that when you put your hand in there, it's not hot, it's not cold? It's about room temperature. This temperature, it makes sense that when you open it up, it's not like opening up the refrigerator or the freezer. It's not 0 degrees. This temperature is not 0 because the oven is room temperature. So it's not going to start at 0. So this is the turning on of the oven. So this line starts to curve. It starts to curve. Why does it curve though? What happens? You guys ever cooked anything in the oven? Call this preheating. You preheat the oven. You put it on 350. You put it on 4 1/4. Depending on what you're cooking. Okay? But then it flattens out. Why does it flatten out? If we're making cookies, it's because we're making cookies. If we're making a turkey, it's because the turkey's in the oven. When you put something on a certain temperature, it doesn't just keep rising and rising and rising, it goes on forever. You'll burn everything you cook. It flattens out because it reached that temperature, right? So we'll say that this is cooking time. My last question for this particular graph, what should it do next? Should this graph do something right after where I stopped drawing? Yeah, I think so. Take a moment, see if you can figure it out. Pause the video. I encourage you to. You probably didn't pause the video. What should it do after this? Well, should the temperature, after I'm done with my cooking, should the temperature increase or decrease? Yeah, ideally it should decrease unless we're cooking something else because we turned it off. And should it go all the way down? No. It shouldn't go all the way down. It should go back down to this location. And it probably should go slower than heating it up because there's nothing in there cooling it down. It's cooling down on its own. So it's going to be a slow, steady decrease. But not to zero, back to where it started, back to room temperature. We can call this oven losing heat. Oven losing heat. I put losing. Oven losing heat. Oven losing heat. That's all for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the videos. This is going to be our last video for this quarter. So I am going to miss you guys. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Peace.